What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Ryan, and I am joined by Chris. We are the Loth-Wolf Pack making a return to the scene. Chris, good to have you back, my friend. It's good to be talking Star Wars. How have you been recently?
Well, as of last week after the big announcement, never been better. Never been better. I mean, I logged into the Wolf Pack today and we had Casey and Levi had posted some videos back in 2021 and we've been dormant. But I mean, maybe I'm like some other people, but I was kind of looking at this other game that was coming out sometime this year and I was thinking about maybe getting into it. And then bam, Star Wars Unlimited. We're skipping that other game and we're going right into the deep end here on the Star Wars. So yeah, doing good, man. Doing good.
There's another card game coming out this year. Whatever could you be talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually forgot about it, to be honest. So that doesn't really exist anymore in my brain.
It's exactly kind of. I was on the fence about that too, but now it's firmly off the fence, and I'm just excited to have this game and to. I mean, we don't even have this game. We have images of like 6 cards, and we have 2 articles so far. But we are, of course, talking about Star Wars Unlimited. It's a new trading card game that was just recently announced by Fantasy Flight Games. It's going to come out in 2024. And all we have right now, we have 2 articles. This article that was actually released today had images. So the first time that we got to see some of these cards, we got a little peek into the gameplay, not much. But we got a lot of just kind of what FFG is aiming to do with this game. And Chris and I are both extremely excited for it. I know the other guys are as well. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this video are excited. And I want to start off by talking about kind of the big elephant in the room that is FFG and card games. And I'm gonna explain my opinion. And Chris, I think you and I are kind of bad people to talk about this type of thing because I think regardless of company, I see Star Wars card game and I'm likely to dive in anyway. But I think people that have hesitation with FFG are, there's a reason for it, just with their track record. But I believe based on just these 2 articles, this is the least FFG type of announcement that we've ever seen. And I mean that in the best way. Like they are being upfront with their presentation. They're being upfront with their information. They have admitted in the article, hey, we've made some mistakes in the past, and this game is looking to, change all that. This game's been in development for 3 years, basically since Destiny died, which gave me a lot of kind of confidence as well. So, I mean, I don't know what your opinions are, but I have full confidence that this is going to be a game that will last for years.
Yeah, I totally agree. Beyond the 2 articles as well, today is we're recording this on Tuesday the 16th, and they also did that live stream little spiel today on the FFG YouTube page. So yeah, to kind of piggyback off what you said, even in the stream too, they had mentioned about how we know things in the past maybe weren't handled the best. We're looking to be more transparent, more communicate better about what's going on, what you can expect. And, they also unveiled in the video that they have the first year of the game, the first 3 sets already hashed out, and they're developing far beyond that. So, not to kind of repeat what you said, but I do think that all of those things that left bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, and justifiably so, they're going to come out hopefully bigger and better than ever with, how they're going to handle this game and how they're going to, I guess, respect the player base and respect the players and the community.
Yeah. And, I think Star Wars is just one of those games. Like, everyone wants to play it. Everyone wants it to succeed. And it really seems like, FFG has always suffered from, hey, we're going to release this really cool thing. And then now the next thing, like I think for Destiny, it was kind of Keyforge, where it's like, hey, now we have this next cool thing. And now, Destiny's going to take a back seat. And then this is going to take a back seat or whatever, amongst other things, obviously. But from what they've hinted at through these articles, it seems as if, they're really dumping a lot of resources. They've got 3 directors or designers, I should say, that headed it. One of them being Jeremy Zwarin, which is amazing news for anybody that was a fan of any of his work. And then they also noticed or mentioned in the live stream that they have 3 separate teams working on all the different sets. So they have, 3 teams of people at any time working on different sets of this game. So that's gonna fine tune, catch other things like such as broken cards, things like that. And it's also going to allow them to develop the game further instead of just relying on the same 3 people. And I've said the counterpoint. Well, that's if 3 people have differing views, that game's going to be a mess. Well, Magic the Gathering does that too, which I don't know if you've heard of that game, but it seems to be doing all right. They have multiple teams working on multiple sets as well, and so that type of dedication and that type of structure is kind of something that FFG has always lacked, which is why I really do believe that this game is going to be a success. Whether it's going to whenever something like this gets released or announced, it's like we're gonna break the top 3 or the big 3, and that's crazy to think about. But I think this type of IP with if it's a good game, which FFG rarely releases bad games, and if it's a good game with a good IP, and it's they pour resources into it, there's no reason why this game should not be successful.
For sure. And I think that kind of points to also kind of the transition that FFG has made since the Asmodee merger happened, where it seemed like in that era of like the 2010s when they had like all these games out, throughout that decade, it kind of seemed like they were stretching themselves a little too thin, and they were kind of like becoming this like jack of all trades but master of none type situation. And then the whole Asmodee thing happens, and then they're like, well, we're going to consolidate all our mini games into Atomic Mass Games, and that's kind of like a separate company. And now FFG can kind of focus on, Arkham, Champions, and then this mystery project that we didn't know about. So it seems like they're really, taking sub companies, like I said, of Asmodee and streamlining them to make better products within each genre of games that they're producing. So I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. And it's kind of funny. It makes sense now why we haven't heard basically anything from FFG about quote unquote new things, except for maybe like a couple board games. They had like that like Unfathomable game, which was like a Call of Cthulhu style game. But other than that, it's like it seems to be that like besides the LCGs I mentioned previously, they're just working on this is what it seems like. And that's why you didn't hear anything from them for a couple of years now.
Yeah, they had like Descent, like that was like a big release, but like that's it's like if they came out with a new Twilight Imperium, right? That's a big deal, but it's nothing really new. It's just kind of going off of their own thing. So yeah, like I mentioned, this thing was being developed for 3 years. So basically, Destiny died. They realized, I think they mentioned the devs mentioned it. Destiny died because of the dice, which we all knew. They realized that the manufacturing cost was just way too much, which that's kind of what we all assumed. It was just never confirmed until today. And basically, right after Destiny died, they went to town on this and started developing this, which also makes sense because one of the greatest things about Destiny was the back and forth. That's one of my favorite things in Star Wars Destiny was I take an action, you take an action. And that was highlighted in this article where they're going to keep this you take an action, I take an action kind of thing, which is one of the best mechanics in Destiny. Even though it's so simple, that back and forth it was awesome. It's not really found in a lot of TCGs nowadays. And so I'm excited for that to come back. But all right, enough about about FFG. I want to dive into this preview article because when I read this today, first off, I didn't expect this. Usually in the past, we get an article and then you don't hear anything about the game for 6 months, and then you get another article, and then you never know how long it's going to take until the set releases because it's a mystery, and then a year later you get the set. But in this, they say, hey, we're going to come out with this game called Star Wars Unlimited. Stay tuned. And then literally like 3 days later, they come out with this preview set, which is insane. So this preview article. So the first set releasing in 2024 is going to have over 200 cards, which is going to be, that's a huge set. There's a couple things that they talked about. Number one, it's going to be potentially draftable, which is something that we haven't really had in a Star Wars game in a very long time. But the cool thing was that or at least my opinion, that they did talk about is your deck is going to consist of 3 separate things. You're going to get a leader, You're going to get a base, which they didn't preview any bases, which so we can only speculate on those. Imagine they'd all each have a different ability, and then you're going to get your deck of cards, which we don't know how big deck size is going to be, and all that stuff. But right there, you're going to have a set leader, a set base, and a set deck of cards. Really plays into the unlimited name of the game. They kind of really want that to be the star of the show because that to me is just so customizable. What leader are you going to bring to the table? We saw two so far, of course, they're Luke and Vader, but it's only imagine. I mean, I can only imagine which leaders we get down the line. You imagine, Palpatine is probably going to be a leader, and then like maybe Han Solo is going to be a type of leader for scoundrels if that's a thing. And eventually you'll get guys like Yoda or Qui-Gon or things like that. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but it just seems like it's so customizable. It's not just here's a deck of cards, play your deck of cards. It's the leaders are all going to be different, and the bases are all going to be different, and the deck choices. And that to me is so exciting, just based on this baby little article.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's definitely a ton of potential here. And to your point, they didn't really elaborate on any specifics within deck building or anything like that. But, from seeing the cards and seeing a lot of the iconography on here and subtypes that are posted on the cards, and people have been doing this already from the article releasing today, but, speculating and trying to infer on kind of what these different icons mean and kind of where that points you. But yeah, it's interesting that they didn't include a base in this spoiler article. And I mean, that kind of leads me to believe that it's going to play a really big role into just the entire game itself, where they're going to have maybe an entire spiel about that entire base mechanic and what that gimmick, not gimmick. I don't want to say gimmick. It's not a good word to use because they said they're not going to use gimmicks.
This is the game without gimmicks.
That's
Chris.
right. That's right. No gimmicks. So, whatever that mechanical part of the game is going to be with the base, but yeah, definitely super cool. And how you said earlier about you weren't expecting this. I certainly was not expecting this either. It was like you said, a few days ago, we get that little just teaser that it exists. And then I didn't expect this type of depth with card images to be like the first thing. I thought maybe like a card back or like, we've seen in other games that they spoil like a card frame, but it's like blank. They'll show you what the card looks like, but everything else is blurred out on it kind of thing. Or like give you an art image, but this is full boat, all these different card types, units, events, whatever those things are called, gambits that my only hope card is. So yeah, really exciting stuff. That's for sure.
I love the art in this game already. Like, I love that they differentiated because the FFG style has always, like, you would play a Rebellion and then you would play Destiny and you would play Imperial Assault or X-Wing and they would all use the same pictures. And like, to me, when I was playing Rebellion coming from Destiny and I would see the same images used, it was almost like, this game's not that special, like, or going from, and which it is because Rebellion's such a good game, but like you look at the art and it's almost like, oh man, that's kind of a bummer. Like I would get that feeling, which might be dramatic of me, but it would take me out of it a little bit. Or I would play Destiny and we would get a new set and be like, oh, I've already seen that art before playing Imperial Assault. Like, that's kind of whatever. That's lazy. But the fact that they hired and like commissioned new art for this game is so refreshing.
Yeah,
I love the
huge.
comic book style. It kind of captures the essence of Star Wars, but being something completely fresh. I think that was a genius decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it also points to how many eggs they're putting in the basket here to go with the decision to commission all this brand new art, and in the stream, they mentioned that I'm pretty sure they said one of the reasons they wanted to have a new art style is that so they can pull from, all these different Star Wars sources and not have it feel out of place, and they can make it cohesive. So it's like, they can pull from comic books, they can pull from movies, animated shows, whatever, and they can adapt the art to fit and make it kind of feel like a whole one cohesive unit, so to speak.
So that's what you're not getting like Mark Hamill playing Luke, and then all of a sudden you get Cal Kestis, but he's the video game Cal Kestis. And
right.
Clearly, like, you're like, what are you doing here?
Right.
I love that. That's a great decision point. And I mean, it's shows how much thought has already gone into this.
For sure. I do agree with you though. Like think about if they would have previewed these cards and they had those same Destiny images, you'd be like, oh, like it would
What's the
kind of
difference?
it would just take a little wind out of the sail. I think of the excitement of it, you know. So this is definitely really cool to see. That's for sure.
I agree. What do you think about before we get into like the specifics and stuff, what do you think about like the formatting? I've seen a lot of, or not a lot, but I've seen some people kind of say that it's a little bit too busy. Obviously, we don't know what the symbols mean. Coming from card games, I can assume that in the top left is going to be the cost of that card, like how much it costs to play. I would assume the red is how much it attacks for. Blue might be a shield value or a health value. And then my assumption would be the top right symbols are, looking at Luke, it looks like he's got the rebels or the force, and then I don't know what maybe the blue. That my assumption would be those are the cards that you can include in that deck that's played with Luke. So that would be my guess. But I personally, I kind of think it's clean. Like I look at it and I'm like, okay, this is sexy. Like I don't think it's too busy at all.
Yeah, I agree. When I first saw it, like I didn't immediately catch with me just because it was such a different look, Yeah,
it is different.
But the more I was looking at them, like I'm down with it. Like the card frames are very distinctive. There's different colors plus different patterns, which is, I guess, similar to like Flesh and Blood, where you have different colors and patterns on the borders to easily differentiate between the classes or, whatever color factions may be. And I also like how they have with the heroes, they have, the art is like probably 2/3 of the card or the units to really give you, an awesome visual there. And then on the event cards or the gambit cards, whatever you want to call them, they're inverted. So you can just by a quick glance, it's really easy to differentiate between stuff that sticks on the board and maybe like a one-time event as you're just kind of fanning through.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I liked how that's perfectly flipped. I mean, it's just God. I like that design. If they have talked about full arts and chase cards in the sets, which I'm already saving up.
Don't even get me started, man.
If they do full arts of these cards or like even alternate cards with foils and stuff, it's gonna be. These are going to look so good.
I mean, dude, we all know lightsabers and stuff in foil is just going to be out of bounds. So forget about it. Yeah.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be so good. But yeah, I like the formatting. I think it's great.
Just by looking at it, I can understand people not really being into it, I guess. But, art is subjective. But I think it kind of fits the theme of the art style, I guess. It's kind of got that like cartoony, comic booky type. What's that? Like Star Wars Resistance, that show type.
Yeah.
Feel to it, I guess. But I understand. But I think once you see these alt art foils, you're going to be like, forget it. I'm all in anyway. I don't even care.
I think also what's going to help is once we learn what the iconography means. Like once you know what the top right is, it's like, oh, that's where I look to see whatever. That's where I look to see whatever. Like once you know what things are, then it's almost like it becomes easier to the untrained eye. Or it's just easier to understand where it is.
Totally agree.
All right, so looking at a couple cards specifically, so I want to talk about the leader mechanic first because this is when Jim and I, who channel you probably have no idea who that is because he's never around. But when Jim and I were kind of fantasy drawing up and we got into Flesh and Blood, we were like, this would work so well with a Star Wars game because Star Wars was always about you're one guy against one guy, like the epic duels and the lightsaber fight and stuff like that. And we're like Fab is such a great system. It would work so well if it was just Star Wars skinned, and it works well anyway in Flesh and Blood. Obviously, they can't use mouse things, but this is kind of a really good way of kind of going about it. Like you have a character, you have one guy that you're going to build the whole deck around, and presumably you have one leader. I think that's what they said, and eventually we might get an opportunity where that's expanded upon or whatever it is. But as of right now, we know that we bring one leader to the game, and you're fighting another leader. And what's cool is this leader isn't like they don't have a health value on them. Like when they're deployed on their leader side, so if you look at like Luke or Vader, they have an ability. So I'm assuming for like Luke's, it's an action, cost one resource or whatever. And then maybe I think that's the action logo or icon that FFG usually uses. And it's give a shield token to a force unit that you played this phase, which is cool. He's got a thing that doesn't seem that crazy right now. It's just adding a health to something. Vader, on the other hand, deals a damage to a unit and a base, which already seems kind of crazy. But that's Vader. And then they have this epic action, which I think is like one of the coolest things that they didn't really highlight. It's just kind of there to just tease us. And it's if you control X amount or more of resources, for Luke at 6, for Vader at 7, deploy this leader. So then you flip him, you ready him, and you move him to the ground arena, which we'll talk about in a second. So like this guy is doing his like the decision as to when to deploy a leader is so cool. You already see like the nuanced decision of like, yeah, you get this action potentially once per turn if you know your units refresh, and like how much difference is he going to make as a ground unit, or is he better off just being your leader and just doing his thing? You know what I'm saying? Like Vader, for instance, is dealing a damage to the base, which is the goal for the game, and dealing a damage to a unit. Why would you ever want to flip him over? Like, if is his impact as a ground unit that much more, drastic? Which it just this game already is like blowing my mind, and I've seen 6 cards.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you kind of put that context into the whole Destiny back and forth situation where you're trying to sequence out, the best possible line here. I mean, that's just even within just the leader itself, that's a lot of action there to really wrap your mind around. But yeah, I think it's cool how they in the stream they were talking about trying to find a balance between the game design feeling like a Star Wars simulation or like an abstract type experience, where I think they were kind of just hinting at designs of previous Star Wars games where like the original Star Wars CCG from Decipher back in the 90s was like full simulation, so deep, hour plus long games, etc. And fast forward, different games have a different kind of feels. This kind of feels like it's an awesome balance in the middle where like your deck has this leader and they have this specific thing that maybe you're going to try to build to, but it might not be like, because you can still put other stuff in your deck that might not exactly match. So that's kind of where the abstract stuff kind of comes in. But as far as the mechanic itself, yeah, I think it's really cool. And I also just noticed on here, if you look in the bottom right corner there of the epic action, there's like those numbers, the red and the blue number.
Oh, yeah.
What that could mean is a cool speculation. I mean, it could be like starting hand size or something like that, or I don't know.
If you scroll up to their other side, so if you go to like the main page, that is those are the numbers that correspond to the red number and the blue number. Oh. So the health and the attack if that's what that is.
Well, it seems to match, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Maybe.
Good call. Yeah, it just tells you what their power and health is on the front side, so you don't have to flip it over to remember, I guess.
But like, just think, like you're sitting on 7 resources and you got Big Daddy as your leader, and you're just like the other dude's just like pass. Like, what are you gonna do with him? And you're just like, oh, I can throw him down whenever I want.
For sure. It is so cool. It is interesting too that the base here of Luke and Vader, their epic action is about amounting resources. So obviously converting your leader onto the field could be an infinite number of conditions to fulfill, but it's refreshing to see that, for base set stuff, if people just want to pick up Luke and Vader, you're kind of playing to the same goal, so to speak, with maybe a couple different asymmetrical things going on.
Sure, before they get into the crazy stuff, which is cool. All right, so kind of touching on but beyond the leaders now. Now the other thing that was really cool that they mentioned is we have 2 different arenas. We have the ground arena, we have the space arena, and I think this is the part that you were like, "Oh my god, this is going to be amazing." And so it seems as if you are going to be fighting 2 separate fronts, which is again where this game is going to shine, is like the amount of actions and things that you can take. Whereas so if you scroll up to their image, we have Grand Moff Tarkin, who is a ground unit. So he can only be deployed to the ground arena. Whereas Wing Leader, that's like the coolest X-Wing art I've seen. So Wing Leader can only be deployed to, he's a space unit, so he can be deployed to the space arena. So like presumably you're going to have threats from both the space arena and the ground arena, both trying to attack the opponent's base simultaneously. So you're going to have to be balancing the space dance as well as the ground dance, which is perfect Star Wars. It's amazing theater. But it's just shows how nuanced, decisions could become in this game. Like my assumption is, both the space and the ground are going to have access to a base. So you're going to be able to do damage to a base on both fronts.
Sure. I didn't actually consider that. There could be a base for each arena. That's a good point. But yeah, this mechanic is something that I really like, and it is something that I don't want to say stole, that's not the right word to use, but they've borrowed this concept from the first Star Wars trading card game, which was made by Wizards of the Coast in 2002, which was designed by Richard Garfield. And he had a space arena, a ground arena, and they also had a character arena. So actually 3 arenas. But it seems like they've consolidated the ground into just one thing, which I think is probably a pretty good idea. But yeah, it's just really cool where, to your point, the two fronts adds just that another layer to the back and forth of the Destiny concept of action, action, action. And I don't want to say this is going to happen for sure in this game because we don't know, obviously, but in the old Star Wars TCG, there were cards that would possibly affect the other arena that would be in like a ground arena. Like, for example, say there was like a planetary bombardment cannon in the ground arena that could shoot into space. Now, I don't want to say for sure, but I thought in the stream that they said they might be separate entities where there isn't interaction between the arena. But I feel like that's
how it starts, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, why would you not try to exploit that at some point later on? But especially in a Star Wars theme, right? Like the one example I'm thinking of is like on Hoth when they're trying to escape in the Battle of Hoth and they shoot that big ion cannon up at the Star Destroyers. Like that was a card that was in the first game. So just an example of different arena interaction. So, but yeah, really, really cool. I love it. And
it's expandable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're seeing the big Moff here, and he's got the. So again, kind of thinking about the icons here, it seems like the green is like Imperial probably, and then that black one is like just the dark side, I think, symbol.
Oh.
And then the Wing Leader, I think that's just like the light sides. That's like just a vanilla light side card, I think. So like Moff is specific to the Imperials, where he's got that Imperial subtype. That's just my guess. I'm not.
I like it.
So
hey, I'm about it. Speculation is what we do best here. So that way everybody can comment and make fun of us next year about how wrong we were.
Yeah, when we're wrong 75% of the time, that's how we do it. Yeah.
This is an underrated part, and this is like kind of the nerd in me that I really like, but I love that the abilities that we've seen so far, Leia's we can't really see, but we can see what the bold text is. They're all when played. So like when you're going to play these cards is such a big deal because it's not like Destiny where it's like there might be a power action on one of them where it's like I can play it and then I can use the power action and still do an ability. This is like timing is everything when it comes to these cards because it's like you only get this ability once. So Grand Moff Tarkin, for example, we have that classic FFG unique little star. So you only get one of them. Presumably you can only put one in your deck. Maybe you'll be able to put one or more than one, but you can only play one, whatever it is. And so you only get his ability one time per game unless there's a way to recycle, right? And so when you're going to play this card, which again, searching your deck, top 5 cards, look for 2 cards, put them in your hand. That seems in a card game, that seems very strong. When you're going to do that is extremely important, right? So like when that ability procs and like Wing Leader, give 2 experience tokens to any friendly, whatever that means. But you only get to do that when you played. So if you're playing Wing Leader, by itself and it's the only thing in your space theater or space arena, like you don't get to give those 2 experience tokens. So do you play Wing Leader when you've got nothing else out there, or do you want to save him and wait for somebody else? You know what I'm saying? So I love the when played I love that they don't have power actions. I'm sure that's going to be something that'll come,
Sure.
later on, or that'll probably be in the set or something like that. Because I know Vader's and Luke's are both one attack, which is
Right.
also really cool.
Right.
Because they're good. They get to do it multiple times if they survive. But yeah, I love that it's just a kind of a one-time thing because it adds another timing aspect to the strategy.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. And I was just looking at this maximum firepower card here.
So the card seems crazy.
Yeah, but now I'm rethinking my green moth icon because this card specifically cites Imperial units and it doesn't have the green icon on it. So maybe the Imperial is just the black icon. I don't know. But obviously we'll see. But it's interesting that if that green symbol does happen to be something with Imperials, that the maximum firepower does not have that on there. But just a little.
So what do we have so far? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different colors. So Leia's got a yellow.
Yeah, Leia's got that little.
Yeah, she's got a yellow.
Yeah.
Tarkin's got a green. Vader's got a red and a black, and Luke has the black and the light side one.
The blue and the light side, yeah.
Or the blue, the blue and the light side one.
Mm-hmm.
So so it looks like a lot of different colors. I'm sure there's going to be many more. Like I like how they didn't show show Han and Chewie, which we know Han and Chewie are coming in here. Come on now.
Yeah, right.
It's cool how they showed off nothing, but they showed off so much as well.
Sure. I think one of the most interesting things, sorry to cut you off there, but I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but one of the most intriguing aspects of any game system for me is how obviously they divulge zero information about the resource system and how that's going to work. So really intriguing stuff there to figure out how that's going to work. Yeah.
That's also true because eventually you're going to have to afford these things. So
you got to get to 7 to flip Big Daddy. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, it's a lot of gold things in the top left corner that we know nothing about. All right, so cards and everything aside, we talked about leaders. We talked about the different things. One of the things that most excites me, and going back to the very first conversation about how I'm trusting FFG is fixing what not necessarily what went wrong, but one of the complaints with Destiny, right? And that's organized play. And I think the name of the game nowadays, if you're going to be a successful TCG, is you have to have OP. You have Pokemon that probably does it better than anybody now that Magic kind of stepped away. Flesh and Blood is probably got the best OP that I've ever participated in. And the games and the tournaments that they organize and consistently have are just fantastic. And then Yu-Gi-Oh, which again is one of the big three, they do it fantastically. But all of those games have amazing, dedicated, organized play because I think those developers, and I mean LSS is probably the best example because they were kind of a nobody company that now all of a sudden is this big juggernaut in the TCG world. They were dedicated to organized play from the very get-go. And they started off local with, store champs and pre-releases and all of these different things and skirmishes. And they've gotten so big as Worlds where the winner got, Hamilton won like, I don't know, $250,000 or $200,000 or $100,000, whatever it was. But they did that from the ground up. And FFG here in this article says, now they're not saying, hey, the world champion gets $200K. But they're saying we are going from the ground up. We want everybody to enjoy this game that wants to enjoy it, whether you're casual, which is what we were in Destiny. We were just kind of locals. The biggest events that we went to were, the regionals. But that was all local stuff. But that's because there weren't really anything bigger than that, or there wasn't anything really bigger than that. There was that one year that we did it at Adepticon, which was fun. That was it, right? Yeah. There wasn't anything like these battle hardens that LSS has or Flesh and Blood has, where it's like battle hardened Columbus is this week, and then 2 weeks later is going to be battle hardened Chicago, where if you want to travel 2 hours to play, you can. There wasn't that for Destiny. This article makes it seem as if we have it we have a plan in place. That little article that they have where the locals are on the left. You have pre-releases. You're gonna have your weekly plays. You're gonna have your store showdowns. You're gonna have all of these local things. We're gonna give you promos. We're probably gonna give you play mats and things like that, which is awesome. And all of that is gonna go to there's no pressure there, right? You don't have to show up with your professional deck and kill somebody at a local. You can play for fun. You can draft, which is hopefully the part of this game, which they kind of hinted at. We're going to have pre-releases. It's just a time to draw eyes to the product, which is what local games should be, right? But then they went and said, if you're a competitive player, which, we dabble. I wouldn't say we're good, but we dabble. There's all these qualifiers. You can play planetary, sector, and regional qualifiers, whatever that means. And if you do well at your store or at this tournament, you're going to get points. And if you earn enough points, you're going to get invited to the championship, which is, they call it the Galactic Championship, which probably for all intents and purposes is their worlds, which is awesome. I love that they have a plan. I love that they're competitive play. You get points, you get rewarded for doing well. And it's more like Pokemon where the winner of the big tournament, right, probably gets an invite automatically. But if you finish second or third, you're not just screwed. You're getting points and you can continue to grind and it'll reward people for traveling. It rewards people for, putting in time to be good at this game. And you'll eventually get an invite to their Galactic Championships where you can win really high-end prizes. And again, FFG is usually promos and stuff like that, but still, I'm not playing this game to win money. I like the shiny things, and if that's the case, if that's what I win, that's great. But I don't know. That was very exciting to me that they, even though it's not fleshed out, even though it's a year away, they said, here's the structure that we have in place already, and we are dedicated to supporting this structure. Now you are, you're top cut Chris. Like, you are the guy when it comes to competitive play. How did you think about this part of the announcement?
Yeah,
What did you think?
I mean, obviously the game announcement is great in itself, but as you alluded to, sometimes games like these, without having a vision around how OP is going to work, it kind of just flops around and there's not a ton of interest. But whoever the main person was on the stream today, like the host person, I guess his responsibility is like, he's like one of the head of OP type people. And he had mentioned that they had, throughout the course of development of this game, they had created these three pillars of OP. And the first pillar that he mentioned was connection, where it seems like it's kind of like the James White philosophy, where it's like, we just want people to come together and enjoy it and play. And that can be casually, it can be competitively. Either way, there's going to be something for you. And I think that's a great place to start. And I feel like
Absolutely.
From, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but all the stuff about FFG's faults in the past and how OP with Destiny kind of left a little bit to be desired, blah, 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 blah. It seems like they're really taking all of the negatives from that and flipping it around, and they're kind of changing their vision for the future. And they're really a forward-thinking company now and have forward-thinking people. And it kind of reminds me of like Team Covenant, where it seems like, Bun and Steven are always just striving to not be complacent and just think about how can they do something better the next time. And I think this is kind of pointing that hopefully this is a game with this sort of, like you said, we're still a year out and they're already in the first article. They have all of these things lined up and they're talking about, if you just want to come and hang, that's cool. We have stuff for you. If you want to try to grind to get to the world championship, you can do that too. So I think it's, I know it kind of sounds like I'm kind of just, kind of fanboying it here, but obviously this is a great sign of what's to come.
I mean, I look at this and I think about our Friday weekly at AF, right? For Flesh and Blood.
Mm-hmm.
You guys don't know us. We're in the Chicagoland area, and every Friday, a store down south for me hosts a weekly event. We have had people we're experienced players. We've been around the game for 2 years now for Flesh and Blood. We played a lot, so we're pretty good. But we've also, in that time, expanded to include newer players that didn't know what they were doing. The players like me, you, Jim, Bradley, those guys, we all had extras. We're like, hey, man, start a collection. Here's a deck. Here's some extras that I can give to you. Play with us. Like, don't think about anything. We'll teach you. We'll have fun, whatever. And now we've expanded from like 3 people, 4 people to like 8, 9, 10 people sometimes, depending on the event. And that's every week, right? And this is what this kind of seems like. Like if you have players or people that are like, if you have a prize pool of a monthly prize pool similar to what Flesh and Blood does. And I feel like there would be no shame for FFG to come out, look at what LSS is doing on their weeklies or monthlies, and just being like, dude, we're going to copy all of that. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you guys promos every week of lower tier cards, but they look great. Mm-hmm. And you probably, they're semi-playable. And then the winner at the end of the month or the end of the week, right, gets a really special playmat and a special card. And it makes you want to play, right? So if they stole that, it's going to attract experienced players, but like experienced players like us also want the game to grow, because without the game growing, the game dies. And if the game dies, we waste money and time and effort and we don't have fun anymore. So like the experienced players want to attract younger players and newer players to the game to get involved. And so when you have that mix of like, hey, the experienced guys want to go and they want to play, and they also want to foster an environment where newer players are welcome and they will fit in and not feel like they don't know what they're doing. That's magic. And that's how card games grow. And this article kind of gave me that. Like, that's what LSS knew right out of the get-go, right? They were like, we need this game. In order for this game to be successful and compete against Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic, we have to get games back at the local game store. And the fact that they survived COVID with that mindset is genius, because it just shows like kind of how, prepared they were for, the TCG world. Mm-hmm. And now they, like I said, they do OP better than any game that I've ever been a part of. And this game should just directly rip off from them, right? Do your pre-releases, get people that don't know how to play or don't know what they're doing, just get them there, right? They said already that they've confirmed that every set, all of the first 3 sets are getting their own pre-releases. Yep. So you'll have pre-release events, probably with promos, that will attract new players, and you're going to have weekly plays, and then the store showdown might be a once a month thing, it might be once every 2 months, but it's just a way to get people involved, like.
For sure.
I don't know.
And I know earlier you mentioned about limited play, sealed and draft, and they did mention that that's going to be something straight out of the box that's possible. So, that's another avenue for, new players. We don't really do it so much with Flesh and Blood right now, but if this game is a really good experience where you can just come down and, hey, let's just buy 6 packs and we're just going to play. And, that's a great, especially when they're promoting this game so heavily a year out, it can really hit the ground running if you gain some traction. Like week 1, launch day, pre-release. I mean, you could have a lot of, especially with the IP, like you mentioned.
It's gonna be huge.
Yeah, it could be huge. Yeah, when you mentioned like we're just now that we've had this conversation and this unveiling, our old school Star Wars Destiny group chat is blowing up. All these Discords are blowing up. People are coming up through the weeds, and it's really. It's just a really refreshing thing to see these people that we used to interact with 2 years ago now coming back, and everyone's getting juiced up again for some Star Wars action,
I love Flesh and Blood. I love Flesh and Blood. I'm so grateful for it. It filled that, that hole that Destiny left. Mm-hmm. I was kind of heartbroken because I'm a huge nerd. When Destiny got canceled, I was like, I was really sad, and Flesh and Blood picked it up. I can honestly say that after these 2 announcements, I am so excited to just play Star Wars card games again, like with my friends, and just like put everything else aside, man. Just like I don't have to have, the tournaments will be fun, playing in those will be cool, but the one thing that I've been missing is just jamming Star Wars card games with you guys and like with my friends and going to like, weeklies. Like that was such a a fun time in my life. And when Destiny got kind of canned, it was like that emptiness was just there. And thankfully, I found a new game. But I just am so excited to just jam. And it's been cool looking at the Discords and seeing names and faces and things like that. And all of a sudden you YouTube it and like Golden Dice and D House and like I saw Jay from Double Blanks was back on, and I mean, dude, I love Double Blanks. Like it's like all of these like ghosts that all went away. We're all tied back to this thing that we love, and that's Star Wars.
For sure.
And if you have a game that's this, and what excites me is that it just FFG doesn't seem like they're playing around. This isn't just like hey, we're gonna give you guys this. It's not a money grab. This is like, we want you guys. This is for the players, and we are now dedicated to making a game that you guys will be proud of, that you guys will play, and that you guys will have faith in. And that's what I got from these articles, and I'm excited to see where everything goes, in the future.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more. And they also announced in the stream that, which I didn't realize this, but there's a deck box and sleeve company called GameGenic. Which apparently is a subsidiary or sub company of Asmodee, which I didn't realize. So that company is focusing on producing the swag bags and the deck boxes and the sleeves. So again, it kind of like, they said they're launching that immediately day one. They're gonna have all the sleeves and all the deck boxes and stuff and binders or whatever. And it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning, where it's like each little lane of Asmodee now can just focus on what they're supposed to do. And they're all seem to be doing it very well. You see Star Wars Shatterpoint coming out, the new miniatures game from Atomic Mass Games. And it seems like when Destiny ended, we were kind of talking like, well, what's going to happen to Star Wars? Are they going to keep it? Are they going to lose it? Because we had no idea. And this has just been, brewing up in the crock pot now for 3 years. And it's just so awesome,
I think the GameGenic thing is like one of the most underrated parts of that. I forgot about that announcement, and I just got excited again because they make bomb stuff. They do everything for champs, Marvel Champions, and like their playmats are insane. Their tokens are insane. Like they have some really, really nice quality stuff, and their game boxes are probably like the best in the business. Like they're up there with like the heavy hitters and deck boxes. So I'm really excited about that announcement too.
Agreed.
So we'll wrap it up here. Going forward, if you guys enjoy the video, comment on it, interact with us, subscribe if you haven't, if we just pop up randomly. We like to push out content. We have another channel that's dedicated to Flesh and Blood. We're not going to promote it here because it doesn't have to be, but we like to push out different types of content. We're not going to make videos just to make videos. But when we get updated with more things like spoiler articles or, gameplay videos or things, look for us to comment on it, to make some videos. And, we're going to try to be as consistent as we can be, up until, the release of this game. And then once that happens in a year from now, we're going to kind of be off and running. So if you're coming back to the channel for, and you're an old school Destiny fan, we're happy to see you guys again. We're happy to interact with you guys again. It's been a while. We've missed you, and we've missed, making content for you guys. And we would love to hear from you. Let us know if you're excited. Let us know if there's anything that you guys haven't, that we didn't talk about, or that you want to point out. I guarantee Chris and I probably messed up at some point throughout this video. So please let us know.
It always happens. There's no way we didn't. So yeah.
Yeah. Let us know. But otherwise, let us know what you're excited about. The best part about Destiny for me was the community. It was the getting to know people at tournaments, interacting with people through these videos. And that was my favorite part. And it's a part of my life that's been missing over these last 3 years. And that I'm very, very excited to get back. So, have yourself be heard. Let us know. Chris, you got anything to wrap up the vid here?
No, that was very well said. And it's just, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. So just kind of piggybacking off your last statement there, in our past video creation stuff, we kind of lean towards, quality over quantity. So if we go silent for a little while, we're still here. So, but we appreciate you tuning in regardless.
Absolutely. We'll try to get Jim out on a video. We'll get Bob out there. We'll get Mark out there, Casey and Levi. Hopefully, Levi's like a big wig now.
Oh,
So
dude,
we'll see
forget
if we
about
can.
it. Yeah.
I'll talk to his agent. We'll talk to his agent and see if we can get him in one of these vids. But we're trying to get the whole pack back and get everybody involved. So we're really looking forward to the game. We're looking forward to making some vids. But on behalf of Chris and the rest of the pack that were not with us today, this has been Ryan with the Loth-Wolf Pack. And until next time, we will see you guys later.